In 2002, a man named Richard Lustig won the Florida lottery for the seventh time. 7 times. The odds of that are roughly 1 in 10 septillion. That's a 10 followed by 24 zeros. So you'd think Richard Lustig died a billionaire, right? He didn't. He died broke. Now here's what's interesting, and this is the question I want you to sit with for the next 20 minutes. Richard Lustig didn't have a money problem. He had a psychology problem, and a terrifying truth. So do you. So do I. So does every single person who has ever looked at their bank account and felt confused, ashamed, anxious, or just stuck. Because nobody teaches us this stuff. They teach us math. They teach us compound interest. They teach us how to read a balance sheet. But they never teach us why we make the decisions we make with money. Why we panic sell when the market crashes. Why we spend more when we're sad. Why we can't save even when we earn more. Why we feel physically sick when we lose $100 but barely feel anything when we gain the same $100. That's not a financial problem. That's a brain problem. And today we're going to fix it. Welcome. Let's get into it. Here's the first thing you need to understand and really let this land. Nobody makes financial decisions with a calculator. They make them with their feelings. I know that sounds obvious, but think about what it actually means. If money were purely mathematical, the optimal strategy would be simple. Spend less than you earn, invest the difference, repeat for 40 years. Done. Everybody wins. But that's not what happens. And it's not because people are stupid. Some of the worst financial decisions in history were made by brilliant people. Nobel Prize-winning economists, PhDs, hedge fund managers. In 1998, a firm called Long-Term Capital Management, run by 2 actual Nobel laureates in economics, lost $4 billion in 4 months. They had every formula, every model, every advantage. What they didn't have was control over their psychology. The psychologist Daniel Kahneman, who also won a Nobel Prize, ironically, spent his career studying this gap. The gap between what humans should do with money and what they actually do. And what he found is that we are all running 2 systems in our head at once. System 1 is fast, emotional, instinctive. It's the part of your brain that feels when you see a sale 70% off sign. It's the part that panics when your portfolio drops. It's the part that makes you tip more when you're in a good mood. System 2 is slow, rational, deliberate. It's the part that knows you don't need another pair of shoes. It knows you should max your retirement account before buying a new car. It knows the casino is designed to take your money. The problem is that System 1 is always running. It fires first, fast, and loud. And System 2, the rational one, often shows up too late or not at all. This is why money management is less about knowing the right answers and more about understanding your own triggers. So let's talk about those triggers. Here's an experiment. I want you to feel this. I'm going to flip a coin. Heads, you win $150. Tails, you lose $100. Mathematically, you should take that bet every single time. The expected value is positive. On average, you come out ahead. But most people won't take it. Why? Because the pain of losing $100 feels roughly twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining $150. Kahneman and his partner Amos Tversky called this loss aversion. And it is one of the most powerful and most destructive forces in all of personal finance. Think about what loss aversion actually does to your financial life. It makes you hold onto losing investments too long, because selling means admitting the loss is real. On paper, it still might come back, but the moment you sell, it's permanent. Loss aversion keeps you frozen. It makes you sell winning investments too early, because you're terrified of watching that gain disappear. You'd rather lock in a profit and feel the small win than risk losing it. Meanwhile, the investment doubles again without you. It makes you avoid investing altogether because the possibility of loss feels more real than the possibility of gain. This is the core irony of loss aversion. the thing that's supposed to protect us from losing money, ends up costing us more money in the long run. Warren Buffett's business partner, Charlie Munger, once said, "Show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome." But I'd add to that, show me the fear and I'll show you the financial decision. Most of our financial fears aren't rational. They're evolutionary. Our ancestors lived in a world where losses of food, shelter, safety were potentially fatal. Gains were nice, but losses could kill you. So our brains evolved to weight losses more heavily. The problem is you're not a hunter-gatherer avoiding famine. You're someone trying to build a retirement account. And the same brain wiring that kept your ancestors alive is quietly sabotaging your financial future. The fix isn't to eliminate fear. It's to recognize it and build systems that protect you from your own instincts. We'll talk about what those systems look like in a few minutes. Now I want to ask you something personal. What did money mean in the house you grew up in? Was it a source of stress? Was it something you talked about openly? Was it shameful to want more? Was it the only measure of success? Was it something that disappeared no matter how hard your parents worked? Most people have never consciously answered that question, but your answer to it is running your financial life right now. Morgan Housel, who wrote one of my favorite books, literally called The Psychology of Money, makes this point beautifully. He says that everyone's relationship with money was shaped by their personal history, not by economics textbooks, not by logic, by the specific experiences they lived through, often before the age of 10. Someone who grew up during the Great Depression never stops fearing that everything can be taken away overnight. Someone who grew up wealthy might unconsciously believe that money always comes back, that risk is safe. Neither perspective is fully right or wrong, but both are invisible. They operate below the surface, influencing decisions that feel completely rational in the moment. Here's a quick way to find your invisible script. Ask yourself, what would having a lot of money mean about me? And what would losing money mean about me? The answers people give are revealing. If I were rich, people would think I was greedy. If I lost everything, I'd be a failure as a person. Money is dirty. People who chase it compromise their values. If I save too much, I'm being selfish with my family right now. These aren't financial beliefs. They're identity beliefs. And identity beliefs are the hardest to change because changing them feels like a threat to who you are. The first step is simply to name them. You can't rewrite a script you can't see. What's yours? Let's talk about why more money doesn't automatically mean more happiness. Because this one is counterintuitive and deeply important. In 1978, psychologists Brickman, Coates, and Janoff Bullman published one of the most famous studies in psychology. They compared two groups, recent lottery winners and people who had recently been paralyzed in accidents. Their hypothesis was that lottery winners would be happier and accident victims would be miserable. What they found instead was almost eerie. Within a year, both groups had returned to roughly the same baseline level of happiness they had before the event. Lottery winners adapted to their new wealth. The thrill faded. The fancy car became just a car. The big house became just a house. This is called the hedonic treadmill. You get a raise, and within months, your new salary feels normal. You buy the thing you've wanted for years, and within weeks, you barely notice it. You upgrade your lifestyle, and your expectations upgrade with it. The treadmill never stops. You just run faster. Here's the financial implication. The reason most people feel broke, even as their income rises, is lifestyle inflation. You earn $50,000, you want $75,000. You earn $75,000, you want $100,000. You earn $100,000. And somehow, you still feel like you're barely making it. The gap between what you earn and what you want never closes, unless you decide to close it. This is what the personal finance world calls the enough point. And it is genuinely one of the most radical and difficult financial concepts there is. Because capitalism advertising, and your social circle are all conspiring, not with evil intent, just by their nature, to make sure you never feel like you have enough. The most financially powerful question you can ask yourself is, what does enough actually look like for me? Not enough to keep up, not enough to impress anyone, but enough to live the life that actually matters to you. People who can answer that question clearly, specifically, honestly, tend to build wealth. People who can't tend to earn more and more while wondering why they still feel empty. Okay, here's one that's going to sting a little. Most of the financial decisions you make that you think are about you are actually about other people. The car you drive, the neighborhood you live in, the vacations you post, the clothes you wear, the school you send your kids to. Morgan Housel has this line that I love. He says, "We buy things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't like." That's not just a witty observation. It's a description of how billions of dollars are spent every year. The psychology behind this is called social comparison theory. We are hardwired, again, evolutionarily, to benchmark our status against the people around us. In small tribal communities, this made sense. Your status in the group had real survival implications. It determined access to resources, mates, protection. But in the modern world, your comparison pool is no longer 50 people in a village. It's the 2 billion people on Instagram, the celebrities on reality TV, the highlight reel of every person you've ever met. And you can never, ever win that comparison. There will always be someone richer with a nicer car, a bigger house, a more impressive portfolio. The financial cost of playing this game is staggering. Studies show that people who live in higher income neighborhoods, even if they earn the same, tend to save less because the comparison pressure is higher. The baseline of normal is more expensive. And here's the brutal irony. The people you're trying to impress with your expensive car, they're not thinking about your car. They're thinking about their own status. They're looking at someone else's car. The status game is a loop that no one wins. The people who actually build lasting wealth, and I mean actual wealth, not the appearance of wealth, tend to be surprisingly quiet about money. They drive normal cars. They live in normal houses. They don't perform wealth. They don't have to, because they actually have it. This next one is a little humbling, so stay with me. A huge part of financial outcomes is luck, and humans are remarkably bad at admitting this. Bill Gates has said himself that he was extraordinarily lucky. He happened to be a teenager interested in computers at the exact moment when one of the only high schools in the entire country to have a computer terminal was his high school. That's not diminishing his genius. It's acknowledging reality. But here's why this matters psychologically. When we succeed financially, we tend to credit our intelligence, our discipline, our insight. When we fail, or when someone else fails, we tend to blame poor decisions, laziness, bad character. This is called the self-serving attribution bias, and it has real consequences. It makes successful people arrogant about risk. I made money last time because I was smart, so I'll bet bigger this time. It makes us merciless toward people who are struggling financially. They just made bad choices, without accounting for the role of circumstance, timing, or birth. And it makes us overconfident in our own ability to predict or control outcomes. The healthiest relationship with money acknowledges both sides. Yes, skill and discipline matter enormously. And luck is a real force that deserves respect, which means don't bet everything on your own brilliance. Build margins. Keep reserves. Stay humble. The people who go broke aren't usually fools. They're often just people who forgot that luck runs in both directions. All right, so we've diagnosed the disease. Let's talk about the cure, or at least the treatment, because understanding your money psychology is only useful if it changes your behavior. So here are 5 practical shifts. 1. Automate your good decisions. Don't rely on willpower. System 1. Your emotional brain will always eventually overpower System 2. So automate your savings, Automate your investments, automate your bill payments. Make the right decision the default, not the effortful choice. 2. Name your financial triggers. What situations cause you to overspend? Stress, boredom, comparison, social pressure? Start keeping a note, even just mental, of when you make financial decisions you later regret. Patterns will emerge, and once you see the pattern, you can interrupt it. 3. Define enough in writing. Seriously, write it down. What does your enough point look like? What income would genuinely meet your needs and bring you peace? What does your enough home look like? Enough car? Having a specific, written answer to this is a shield against the hedonic treadmill. 4. Widen your time horizon. Almost every good financial decision looks bad in the short term. Investing feels risky. Saving feels like sacrifice. Delaying a purchase feels like deprivation. But our emotional brains are terrible at thinking long term. They're wired for immediate feedback. Train yourself to evaluate decisions over years and decades, not days and weeks. 5. Stop performing wealth. Start building it. Every dollar spent on status is a dollar not working for your future. The goal isn't to look rich. The goal is to be free. Financial freedom is the ability to wake up and do what you want with your time. That's the real product of money. Not stuff, not status. Time and freedom. These aren't revolutionary ideas. But most people know what they should do with money. The hard part, the part nobody talks about, is the psychology of actually doing it. Remember Richard Lustig, the man who won the lottery 7 times? He never figured out his money psychology. He kept spending, kept gambling, kept chasing the feeling of the win. The money was never the problem. The mind was. Your income, your net worth, your financial situation right now. These are all just outputs. The real work happens inside. In your beliefs about money, your emotional relationship with it, your invisible scripts, your social comparisons, your fears. Change the inputs and the outputs change. If this hit differently than you expected, drop a comment below. I read every single one. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share it with them. I'll see you in the next one.